When I was 17, my bedroom window faced our backyard, which was surrounded by a fence. Beyond the fence, there was a small patch of woods and a pond. I liked the view, and usually kept my blinds open at night so that the morning sunlight could gently wake me up. One night I was up late on my phone with my dog lying beside me in bed. It was around 2 a.m., when suddenly my dog jumped up and started barking aggressively at the window. At first I thought he might be barking at his own reflection, so I tried to calm him down. But he kept his eyes fixed on the left side of the window, where his reflection wasn't visible. I realized then that I couldn't see outside because my nightstand lamp was on, creating a reflection on the glass that obscured the view beyond. Trying to act casual, I turned off the lamp as if I were preparing to go to sleep. The second the light went off, I froze. In the darkness, I saw a pair of human eyes staring back at me from the left side of the window. I felt a surge of fear but knew I couldn't show it. Pretending to yawn, I reached for a water bottle on my nightstand and took a sip, hoping the movement would appear natural. Then, without making any sudden moves, I walked out of my room and went straight to my parents' room to tell them what I had seen. My dad dismissed my concerns, insisting that it was probably just my imagination. He pointed out that the motion sensor lights outside hadn't gone off, which he said meant there couldn't have been anyone out there. Feeling uneasy but somewhat reassured, I returned to my room. I closed the blinds, turned off the light, and tried to get some sleep, telling myself that it was all in my head. The next morning, I took my dog outside to the backyard, and something made me check the ground beneath my window. The pine needles covering the ground looked disturbed, almost as if someone had been kneeling or crouching there. I tried to ignore it, repeating my dad's explanation about the lights. But that afternoon, he checked the lights himself and found out that both BUI used to clean rooms at a fancy hotel in Washington, D.C. in the 1990s. My name is Sybil, and I'm a refugee from Vietnam. The journey from my homeland was fraught with unimaginable hardships, leaving me with deep scars both physically and emotionally. Yet amidst the turmoil, I found a glimmer of hope in the bustling corridors of the hotel, where I sought to rebuild my life from the ground up. Despite not speaking English very well, I immersed myself in learning the language, understanding that communication was key to my new beginning. My colleagues admired my determination, often going out of their way to help me improve my language skills. The guests, too, appreciated my dedication. Their heartfelt thanks for maintaining their rooms spotless gave me a sense of purpose and belonging that I had longed for since arriving in the United States. This job was more than just employment. It was a sanctuary from the chaos and trauma I had endured. I worked tirelessly, often putting in long hours without complaint, driven by the desire to create a stable and secure life for myself. The hotel, with its grand architecture and elegant furnishings, stood in stark contrast to the war-torn landscapes I had fled. Here, I could leave behind the nightmares of the past and focus on building a peaceful future. One crisp autumn morning, a guest arrived who would change everything. He checked into the hotel under the name Mr. M, reserving the most expensive room on the top floor. This room was a privilege reserved for the wealthiest patrons, boasting sweeping views of the city skyline, plush thick carpets that muffled footsteps, and grand chandeliers that sparkled under the soft lighting. The room was a testament to luxury, and maintaining its pristine condition was a task I took great pride in. When I was assigned to clean Mr. M.'s room, I noticed something unusual about him. He had an air of sophistication, always impeccably dressed, and carried himself with a quiet confidence. Yet, there was an unsettling undertone to his presence. Mr. M insisted that no one should enter his room without his explicit permission. He would kindly inform me that I didn't need to knock, his smile warm, yet disconcerting. His politeness was unwavering, but there was an inexplicable sense of otherness about him that I couldn't quite place. For over a month, Mr. M was the sole occupant of his room. The "Do Not Disturb" sign hung on his door at all times, a rarity even among the most private guests. I never saw him interact with anyone else. No phone calls to the front desk, no visits from other staff members, nothing. His routine was rigid. and he seemed to blend seamlessly into the hotel's rhythm, yet always remained an enigma. Then one day, Mr. M was gone. The Do Not Disturb sign was removed, but there was no trace of him anywhere in the hotel. The front desk staff initially assumed he had checked out early in the morning without notifying anyone, as his reservation was paid in advance with a credit card. However, a thorough check of the logbook revealed no record of his departure. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The management, perhaps thinking it was a simple oversight, decided not to pursue the matter further, considering the payment had been secured. I was instructed to clean Mr. M's room. As I approached the door, a sense of dread settled in my stomach, heavier and more oppressive than anything I had experienced before. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and pushed the door open. Immediately, a foul, sour smell assaulted my senses, making me gag. The room, which had always been immaculate, was now in complete disarray. Empty bottles were scattered across the floor, furniture was overturned, and the once neatly made bed was a tangled mess. The stench was strongest near the closet, where the door stood slightly ajar. My heart pounded in my chest as I cautiously approached. Inside the closet, beneath layers of clothes and random items, I noticed a cardboard box that seemed out of place. My hands began to tremble as I reached out to lift the lid. What I saw inside made me stumble backwards, screaming in horror. There, in the box, was a mass of tangled hair, matted and stained with dried blood. The sight was grotesque and utterly terrifying. Panic surged through me, making my legs weak and my breath catch in my throat. I turned to flee the room, barely able to walk straight, as terror gripped me completely. I rushed to the elevator, pressing the button frantically, hoping to escape the nightmare I had just witnessed. By the time the elevator doors opened, I felt my strength give out, and I collapsed in the lobby. When I regained consciousness, paramedics, police officers, and concerned hotel staff were gathered around me. They had already sealed off Mr. M.'s room as a crime scene. The officers were taking statements, and the paramedics were tending to me, ensuring I was physically okay despite the shock. Later, I was informed that Mr. M had checked in using a fake name and a stolen credit card. The investigation revealed that the hair found in the box belonged to a young woman, a member of a film crew who had gone missing weeks earlier. It seemed that Mr. M had been involved in something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined, using the hotel as a cover for his dark activities. The revelation shook me to my core. The image of that blood-streaked hair haunted me for years, a dark shadow that lingered in my nightmares and waking thoughts. I couldn't bring myself to return to that hotel, and I resigned from my position immediately. The trauma of uncovering such horror was too much to bear, and I needed to distance myself from the place that had been both my refuge and the source of my deepest fears. Even now, years later, I still wonder about the true nature of Mr. M, and what other secrets that grand hotel might hold. Did I truly escape something far darker, or was it just the tip of the iceberg? The questions remain unanswered, leaving me with a lingering sense of unease and the haunting memory of that fateful day. That night, the rain fell with relentless force, as though it was determined to drown everything in its path. My windshield wipers struggled to keep up as I drove through the storm on a deserted road, the world around me swallowed by darkness. The trip had been meant as a peaceful escape, a chance to reset after a tumultuous period in my life. But now, late at night and alone, I regretted not stopping sooner. The glow of a distant neon sign brought some relief. It flickered weakly, spelling out Sunset Motel, though the burned-out S left it reading Unset Motel. My instincts warned me against it, but exhaustion won over as I pulled into the muddy lot. The motel had a single, dimly lit, L-shaped structure, its doors lined up like weary soldiers. The building looked old and neglected, with peeling paint and broken windows that seemed to watch me as I approached. I got out of the car, the crunch of gravel underfoot seeming unnaturally loud against the oppressive silence. A single light above flickered ominously, casting long shadows across the parking area. Inside, the musty office reeked of cigarettes and dampness. Behind the counter, An old man sat, his skin pale and his eyes sunken from years of neglect. His voice was low and rough as he asked if I needed a room, his smile not reaching his tired eyes. I forced myself to ignore the growing unease and nodded, handing him cash as he slid the key to room 7 toward me. His fingers brushed mine, lingering slightly longer than necessary, sending a shiver down my spine. "Cash only," he reminded me, then whispered, "You'll be fine there." The comment was odd, but I brushed it off, walking through the rain to room 7. The corridor leading to room 7 was narrow and dimly lit, with flickering lights that cast unsettling shadows on the walls. Each step I took echoed loudly, making the hallway seem even more deserted and eerie. As I approached the door, a sour, musty smell filled the air, making my stomach churn. The wallpaper was peeling in places, revealing the worn plaster beneath, and the carpet was sticky and stained from years of neglect. Roaches scurried across the floor as I stepped inside, their sudden movements adding to my discomfort. Disgusted by the state of the room, I dropped my bag onto the bed, the noise startling me further. The bed was unmade, with sheets wrinkled and stained, and empty bottles littered the floor. I forced myself to sit on the edge of the bed, trying to relax and convince myself that the discomfort was just a result of the storm and my fatigue. But a heavy feeling weighed down on me, like someone was watching my every move. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and decided that if the feeling persisted, I'd sleep in the car instead. As I sat there attempting to shake off the unease, I heard it, a soft rustling in the corner of the room, like fabric sliding against the floor. My heart raced as I opened my eyes, scanning the dim room until I spotted it. In the far corner stood a shadowy figure, slouched and barely discernible in the weak light. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, or a shadow playing on the walls. But as I continued to watch, the figure became clearer, its head tilting slightly, its form nearly human but not entirely. Frozen in terror, I felt my breath hitch. My brain screamed to run, but my body refused to obey. The figure remained silent, facing me with a blank, dark void where a face should be. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Was it a person? A hallucination brought on by exhaustion? But the presence felt too real, too tangible to be a mere figment of my imagination. Summoning every ounce of courage, I managed to slip out of bed and move toward the door, my heart pounding as I fumbled with the handle. The fear was paralyzing, making my hands shake uncontrollably. I didn't stop until I was outside, my chest heaving as I inhaled the cold night air, the storm still raging around me. I ran to my car and locked the doors, unable to stop shaking. Every instinct urged me to leave the motel as quickly as possible. I dared a final glance back at room 7, and there it stood, in the doorway, still watching me. Its form was now unmistakable, a dark shadow with an empty, chilling gaze that seemed to pierce right through me. The sight sent a wave of panic through my entire body, and I knew I had to get out of there immediately. With trembling hands, I started the car and pulled out of the lot without turning on my headlights, the darkness enveloping me as I sped away. My mind raced with thoughts of what I had just experienced. The image of the faceless figure burned into my memory. I drove without stopping for miles, not daring to breathe, until the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, signaling the end of the storm. Exhausted and still shaken, I found myself at a small diner seeking refuge and a place to process what had happened. I ordered a coffee, hoping the warmth and caffeine would help calm my nerves. As I sat at the counter, I noticed a newspaper left on a nearby table. Curious, I picked it up and began to read the headline: "Sunset Motel shut down amid suspicious activities and unexplained disappearances." My eyes widened as I read the articles detailing the motel's dark history, stories of missing persons, unreported crimes, and rumors of supernatural occurrences. The realization hit me hard. I had narrowly escaped becoming another victim of something truly sinister, far darker than a night in a rundown motel. The revelation left me with a lingering sense of dread and a deep-seated mistrust of appearances. How had I not noticed the signs earlier? The peeling wallpaper, the foul smells, the eerie silence. Now, in hindsight, they all pointed to a place with secrets too dark to uncover. The memory of that faceless figure in room 7 haunted me, a chilling reminder that some places hold shadows better left undisturbed. Leaving the diner, I vowed never to speak of that night again, but the experience left an indelible mark on my psyche. The journey that was meant to be a peaceful escape had instead plunged me into a nightmare from which I couldn't awaken. The haunting image of the empty gaze in room 7 serves as a constant reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary and the supernatural, and the dangers that lurk in the forgotten corners of the world.